So now I can call you Madam President. We'll solve all those problems.
You can also call me Kersti. And you know, by the way, about this 100th birthday, the granddaughter of my friend came home from kindergarten and she said, you know, I was taught today at kindergarten that Auntie Kersti is turning 100 this year. Because, of course, as a president's photo is in the kindergarten, so the baby put kind of 2 and 2 together. But I'm actually 49, not 46.
And you've been president for 2 years,
Yes.
and you were almost, in some ways, an accidental president. Your parliament came calling when the other candidates, 6 of them, you said, couldn't get a 2/3 vote. So this was a surprise call to you. How are you handling it?
Well, you wake up in the morning and look in the mirror, and you know politicians don't really stand there and gloat, oh, fantastic, I'm a president. What we instead do is, we think, oh my God, I'm president. What I'm going to do today for my country and tomorrow for my country. And I mean, the world is turbulent and Estonia is a tiny country, 1.3 million people. Okay, we are EU and NATO members and OECD members, so we are in a safe environment and we have many friends, but nevertheless, you always have to wake up in the morning and make your country safer by the evening. And the next morning, there are new surprises and you start all again. And then in addition, you have to define your in-the-country mission. And for me, this is to a certain extent that Estonia has developed economically really quickly, all these digital developments you were mentioning. And also our education is great and our healthcare is wonderful, but we do lag behind in helping the weaker parts of society, the handicapped people. Also, we don't care that much about whether women are really treated equally at the workplace. I was listening during the lunch how much systemic work are big companies here doing in order to achieve really this lack of conscious or unconscious bias. I mean, we don't even have to deal with unconscious bias yet because so much conscious bias is out there.
But one thing that I have to say you are really good at is branding, because to most people, Estonia is this Baltic country somewhere between St. Petersburg and Copenhagen, and no one's really sure where it is. But it's the birthplace of Skype. And despite how cold it is, apparently unicorns like it there. And you've decided that your greatest natural resource as a small country is what's between people's ears. And you've become a digital country to be, and one that has very favorable terms for technology companies. And you have this great quote. You say, globally, it's not yet recognized that technology makes people free. We need a new social compact between people and government. What do you mean by that?
Very simple. Nowadays, you don't have to go to work on a certain address and live at a certain address. I mean, I can be very narrowly specialized and therefore have a really high added value to what I can offer. And I can work for 10 different companies globally. They may be US, Australia, France, Finland. I may sit somewhere in Mediterranean. And then some country has to be my safe dock where I pay my taxes and where I receive my services. And then I must receive these services also globally. And why we in Estonia see it or understand is it because we have part of our service is actually achievable globally. I can vote from here, for example, if there is election in my country. Yes, because I can do it electronically. I can sit in my hotel room and apply for social services or apply for renewal of my driver's license. So we do offer our services to our traveling citizens globally. We haven't yet figured out how to gather taxes and therefore offer for those who want Estonia to be their safe dock. Education globally, but we understand we have to have our primary and secondary school program online quite soon so that Estonians living elsewhere, and many do because we are part of the EU free market for people. I mean, everybody can work anywhere in Europe. So they must have an opportunity to still have Estonian language tutoring for their kids. It's our obligation as a state, and they are citizens. And we haven't figured it out, and it's even worse. Everything I can think about as a new tax agreement between a government and a digital nomad is directly into the face of all OECD agreements. And we need to change this altogether. We cannot do it alone.
So it's interesting, when you talk about being a digital country and a digital government, and I thought, well, the US, we have online applications, but yours is much more integrated. You have an online, a digital ID card, essentially, right? Is that sort of the core, the anchor of what your citizens' life is online? Is that how it works?
This is true, but not only for public services. Actually, we have for public and private services, everybody can build their services on the digital backbone of the country, which is called X-Road. And indeed, what it is a digital passport. You identify yourself in digital world like you identify yourself in analog world with your passport. And we see this as an obligation of the government, because why you leave your people and businesses alone in internet if they act and transact and communicate in internet more and more? So in analog world, if you go to some office, you show your passport, everybody knows it's you. In cyber, our citizens show their digital passport, and this is so for a generation now from the turn of the century. And it works like an app store. Private companies also build services on this backbone. So you could build services on this backbone.
Well, the thing about the United States is that I don't think there's a level of trust here to, you know, even the talk of a national ID card makes people really nervous. The idea of a digital ID card in the United States, it's hard to see how we could get there politically. I mean, your citizens clearly have trust in the government not to abuse.
It's because we understand digital environment probably better. And the reason is that we've been there already from the turn of the century. Actually, all governments say that if you give us, let's say, your health information or some information about, well, your family status, we keep it safe. But they keep it in archives somewhere on paper. Everybody can read it and you wouldn't know. Our promise is implemented. It's in a database, all separated databases. And you have access to these databases only with this digital identity. So it leaves traces. So if somebody checks my health data, I know who did it. My doctor, some other doctor. And if it was a doctor, I do not understand why this doctor was checking. I will make a call, and they have an obligation to tell me why. And if I'm not happy, I can sue, and it's criminal offense. So it's not technology or just the trust which happens to be there because our people are naive. It's smartly created legal space which makes people safe.
So I want to bring everybody into the audience, into the conversation. Raise your hand if you have a question about a digital government. Let me ask you about cyber hygiene. You say citizens need to know, young people need to understand and learn cyber hygiene. What does that mean?
This means that technology will never keep you absolutely safe. The problem will always be between the computer screen and the chair. And you have to teach your children already from the early age that they have to keep themselves safe online. We have web police which goes around the school and teaches children that, I mean, first of all, the things which are not comme il faut in the real world, you cannot do this also in internet. And also that you are safe in internet and you can trust other party only if they have signed in with a digital identity, which means that our people get it automatically that Facebook is not safe, Google is not safe, and we don't have to blame, I mean, Facebook and Google and all other big companies for not keeping our people safe because we offer them public safe environment. And we train from early age everybody, of course, to use it, but also how to stay safe. And I think every country has an obligation to teach their citizens how to be safe in a cyber environment. I call it cyber hygiene because we taught people to stay safe by washing their hands. And then everybody says, okay, how do we get this message to everybody? Frankly speaking, I think we have better communication means now than we had then when we taught people to wash their hands. So stop hand wringing, get up and do something.
Questions? We have a question. Yes, who has right back here?
Hi, Phyllis Yale. Clearly your digital approach creates a lot of convenience for your citizens. I'm wondering whether you have also used it to engage your citizens. So whether your voting rates are higher, whether you've got more people engaging in dialogue and debate.
Good question.
Hard to say because we have only one Estonia. I wouldn't know what would be our voting rates if we didn't have digital voting.
Well, were your voting rates lower before you went?
Yes, but we have regained our independence 30 years ago, slightly less than 10 years after regaining independence. Already we operated an online voting system, so I definitely wouldn't know what the baseline would be. But what we do know as a measurement of what we get out of this is that everybody saves 4 working days because they don't administer, because they can do everything online, pay taxes, apply for social services, all these things, and 2% of the GDP, which, by the way, is inclusive in itself, that this 2% of the GDP is saved mostly by those who are more vulnerable, like women with small children who find it very difficult to go out and do things physically, like handicapped people, like SMEs, because big companies can manage, big bureaucracies, small ones cannot. So we feel it's a great equalizer, but of course in the beginning we had to make sure that it becomes inclusive, so we ran special training programs for young people, but also for elderly people.
Right here.
Yes, Carla Harris, Morgan Stanley. Thank you so much for being here. Can you give us a few examples of what you mean by cyber hygiene and the kind of things that you're teaching a 3-, 4-, 5-year-old? Because I'm not sure I even heard that term before.
Yes, you haven't. It's coined by me, so it's my copyright. So if you hear any other politician saying this, then they have to cite me, and if they don't, then...
So we have something here called copyright.
Yes, but I'm using social copyright, so I'm not in any way protecting it, because I've been an advisor to Prime Minister, and I know the good old adage is, if you want something to spread, give up the authorship. So I'm doing it. But please, if you can remember, cite me on that. What I mean is exactly this. Keep your computer, your phone always updated. Never write your passwords into a little reminder file or even on the paper on your computer. Keep in mind that if it's abuse in the real life, it's abuse in computer system. All these are elements of cyber hygiene, because there will never ever be a technology that keeps us safe. It's only our own acts. Therefore, we have to teach children and other people to keep themselves safe. Simple.
Questions? Back here.
Hi, Marjorie Krauss, APCO Worldwide. I was wondering if you are concerned about all the Russian interference in terms of hacking and Estonia being a target, and whether you could shed any light on that actually helps us sort through all of this. And
have you been a target?
We have been. The first ever country as a sovereign state to come on the cyber attack was Estonia. It was a simple service denial attack. It was in 2007, and you couldn't at that time attack any other country, and it was indeed Russia who did it. But already then we managed to fight back in this way that inside the country systems were up and running. You couldn't access them from abroad, and I couldn't, for example. I was at that point in Luxembourg for a week. I couldn't access these services from abroad, but inside country they were running. After that, the NATO created a Center of Excellence of Cyber Defense in Estonia, and quite a lot of academic work has been done about the rights, the legal rights and obligations of states on cyber issues. But I admit that we do not have a good international understanding how our law, international law space about sovereignty applies in the cybersphere. And that is why Estonia decided to put itself up for United Nations Security Council non-permanent membership, because we want to bring all this cyber discussion into the Security Council, like New Zealand, another small country relatively, compared to us it's huge. But anyway, they brought climate issue to Security Council. We want to take cyber issue to Security Council. Small nations have no time for small objectives, so we set us that.
So I'm glad Marjorie brought up Russia, because there is a lot of concern that as a Baltic state, you are under physical military threat from Russia. How do you address that?
First of all, I'm not sure you can anymore limit this even physical threat to countries close to Russia. Also, you asked whether we are afraid more probably about cyber threats. Why should we? I mean, it's geographically neutral threats. I mean, you have faced, everybody has faced these threats globally. And now after Salisbury, we cannot even say that the physical threats are only related to countries close to Russia. I mean, Salisbury is very far from Russia, but very deep in NATO territory. So I don't see we have a particular reason to be more afraid than any other NATO country, because security is indivisible.
But you've been occupied by the Soviet Union.
Yes, but then we didn't have NATO, nor EU, for example. And international law space was really scarce about the rights of, countries and people to decide for themselves. Helsinki Final Acts don't date back to the time when we were first independent. So we were alone. We have taken care that we are not alone. We are NATO members, and we are spending 2.2% of our GDP on our defense already for years, not when people started to talk that everybody should do it. So we fulfill the Article 3 of NATO agreement. First, protect your own territory, and then we can rely, of course, on our partners and allies to do what it takes to deter. And frankly speaking, are you feeling safe? NATO has a 100% track record of protecting its territory. So of course we feel safe, but this doesn't mean we don't do anything. We analyze and we react, NATO as a whole, not only Estonia, of course.
Questions? I have another question for you. You do have some unicorns in the country.
Per million.
Four.
More than San Francisco.
More than per person, it's more than San Francisco. Yeah. Is that what you said? Yeah. So that's how we're doing a per capita count here. So you've got this audience here. Sell Estonia as a place to do technology.
Yes. And not only, by the way, digital technology, also biotech, because it's not only the digital space which is clearly regulated so that all customers, all companies and government know their rights and obligations in cyberspace. It's also, if you want to do population level genomics analysis in Estonia, again, you have a safe environment where it is regulated, how people can donate, how this data has been stored, kept, how people keep the right to their genetic information, and how all this information can be used in non-personalized format to develop web doctors, to develop all kinds of biotech services and products by companies and also by scientists. So you are safe. It is not like you do not have a legal space, you do something and then you get accused that you did something, even if there was no legal space, which I think is the problem of the big digital companies right now. They didn't break any laws. The space did not exist. We tried to create space which is safe for technology. For example, now we are discussing that since our people are very demanding and they now want services which are proactive from government, and we already have one running, which means that there are two systems taking a decision about one person and paying out a sum of money. It's single retired people. They are entitled to a top-up to their pensions. And there is nobody, human being, is not checking whether they are entitled. Two systems decide, this is a pensioner living alone. The other system says, therefore, I mean, there is a right to top up and it's paid out. No human on the loop, it's off loop. But this means we are now getting to a situation where we absolutely have to regulate the relations between human being and an algorithm. And first we thought we will do it technology by technology. So we have, for example, regulated in our traffic code an accident between a car and a robot. And we've had one, and the car driver was found guilty, by the way. So, but then we realized we cannot continue, I mean, horizontally regulating for all kinds of developments in narrow IE, I mean, physical independent autonomous systems, or then computerized autonomous systems. And then we decided we will try to do a law which will regulate all algorithm and human relations. First, we thought we need to create a special identity for an algorithm, but now it looks like that all our analog law, if we describe how it applies in the cybersphere and to algorithms, it might work without special identity. And you know what? There are elections next spring, but I'm confident that after the elections, the parliament will do this law because citizens demand it. I mean, they have to. One service is already there. We call it pilot, so I mean, it is outside of the current legal space. But you cannot expand, but people want us to expand. So this law will happen, never mind whether it will be the green government or whatever color of the government. Normally, it's a liberal government in Estonia.
So, Madam President, since we're out of time, I do have one more question. Since if I'm a really cool startup and I want to relocate there, what's the one piece of clothing I need if it's 20 below zero in the winter?
First of all, why do you relocate? Become e-resident of Estonia, establish your company, and run your business online. I mean, you don't have to go there.
Stay warm. Madam President, thank you so much. She will be here tonight for those of you who want to see. Thank you so much. Thank you.